awesome. Well, thank you for the introduction, Caddy. I'm excited to be here. So I'm just getting this all going, making sure I can switch slides properly. All right, we're good so far. How's everybody doing? I hope you're having a great, I guess this is second day of Vancouver Startup Week. I'm just pulling up my notes here. So today's session is going to be a little bit different. What we're talking about is going to be more of a coaching thing. So I like to get into the minds of the entrepreneurs I work with, specifically in terms of looking at, we can have all the strategies in the world and we can have, all the tools, but unless we're able to effectively implement them and experience that breakthrough in our business over and over again, we are going to be stuck and feeling overwhelmed. And that is what I want to give you as a tool to put in your toolbox today. So I am going to be doing a little bit of interactive stuff. So if you have, answers to some of the questions I have or anything like that, do feel free to pop them into the chat. Let's see if we can hold the questions towards the end. So that way they're all kind of together in the chat and we don't have to do a bunch of scrolling. So if you can all see my slides and we're good to go, let's get started. So the topic today is called Live in Business Breakthrough. We're talking about taking more action, eliminating all the overwhelm that plagues most of us as entrepreneurs, and learning how to grow our business faster. And I'm going to be sharing some personal stories in here, which are going to help, kind of highlight some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today. So whenever I give presentations, whether that be, with clients or in events like this, I think it is super important to get what you came for in terms of showing up and making sure that you're leaving with. So what I often ask myself is whenever I go into a learning experience, whether I think it is completely relevant to my business or not, is I like to figure out, what did I show up here to get? What do I plan on learning? So you probably looked at the title. It's Live in Business Breakthrough, right? So what are you planning to get out of this? What do you want to learn? And I often keep, whenever I'm doing sessions like this or workshops and I'm one of the participants, I love to keep a notepad nearby. And the reason for that is because I like to capture my thinking, not necessarily detailed notes about what I'm learning, but I like to take a step back and notice where my brain is going. What am I thinking about some of the things I'm learning? Because you can get some of your best inspirations there when you start to capture how your brain is thinking about what you're learning. I also always like to ask myself, how does this apply to me? Even if this example isn't entirely relevant to where you are in your business or what you're working on in your business, I like to always say, how can I apply this to me? Because if someone is focused truly on growing and learning and becoming better, they're always going to be looking for how they can apply what they're learning to themselves. And that is such an important skill. And the last thing is we're going to be looking for things that aren't on our radar. So one of the most powerful ways to learn is to look for things you didn't know you were looking for and being open to all of those things, because that sometimes is where our roadblocks or what we're getting stuck on lies, is in the places we're not even looking for them. So get what you came here for today. Decide that if you're going to walk away with something, that you're going to have it written down on your notebook at the end of this so that you can start implementing as soon as you get it off this chat we're here for today. So the goal is I want you to leave here today with a new awareness. So understanding something new about yourself or the way you've tackled problems before or approached things that you haven't really understood before. This is where you get your most growth, is where you kind of open that up. So whether I'm coaching clients or I'm giving presentations, I don't like to leave any room for what I call justifications or blame or defensiveness or self-judgment or excuses. None of that has any place here. And here's how I like to think of it. Oh, well, what you're talking about couldn't apply to me because of this circumstance over here. Or no, I'm not far enough along in my business to have this apply to me. We like to have those kinds of thoughts and think those kind of things. And it really doesn't serve us. So I want you to decide for today that you're going to let all of that sit on the sidelines and you're just going to be open to learning something fun and new today. So we're going to jump into that. But before we get started, I want to introduce myself. I probably haven't met most of you in here. I am Tanessa Shears. I'm a health consultant and life coach for entrepreneurs. So what I do specifically is I help entrepreneurs scale their businesses by optimizing their focus and their productivity and their health with science and biohacking specifically. I help entrepreneurs, I educate them on how to use sleep and nutrition and movement and focus to get more out of their average day than most people can get done in like a couple days. So my goal is to take the time that you work on your business and make it hyper productive. I like to think of like being kind of the body and brain optimization coach for the entrepreneur. And I do this by optimizing the performance capacity of your brain so that you're able to focus for longer extended periods of time, that you're able to be in peak shape and focus and create that momentum with your business. Because at the end of the day, when, we have all the same skills as the entrepreneurs we're competing with, and we have similar, platforms and everything like that, what it comes down to at the end of the day is who is more optimized, who is able to show up and serve their customers better and have, control over their emotions and their mood and be productive and feel like they can manage overwhelm and stress, because that entrepreneur is going to be the one that's going to pull ahead, because you are your biggest asset to your business. So I'm, I guess, the type of person that people outsource all of their worrying about when I should sleep, what I should be eating, when I should be moving, and all of that stuff so that you can stay in peak performance, because you're the biggest asset to your company. And I want your brain power to be going to what's going to grow your business, not your health. That's what I do. So that's, I guess, what I do more on a day-to-day basis. But jumping into what we're going to be talking about today is I like to ask myself, like, what is the biggest reason that we don't grow or take action? Like, why are we always getting stuck? This really interests me. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. So I started my business back in 2014, and I had all of these ideas on how I was going to grow. I had like notebooks and notebooks, like the ones you get from Chapters that are all pretty on the outside. I have so many of those full of ideas of things I wanted to do and things I wanted to try and all of that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I have a little list here of the things that I had on my plate at one point. So I had an Instagram account going, but I also had a YouTube account going. I was partners for a local event company that ran obstacle course races. So I did that for a long time. I taught personal training classes. So if you wanted to be a personal trainer, I taught at the college that actually ran those. I taught local fitness classes. I competed in fitness shows. I mean, I had it all on my plate when I first started out as a personal trainer. And when I started to move into the online space as an online coach, I was like, oh, I'm going to do Facebook Lives. And I started writing articles. And then I hired a business coach, which set me back $7,000 for a 45-day intensive. I did webinars. I did free challenges. I put out, those free lead magnets. I posted in Facebook groups. I created a Facebook community, which had like 1,300 people in it. I hired a Facebook ads manager. I mean, like, I had all of the things going on and I was doing them all, and I found that I was really exhausted. So I don't know if you can relate to this, where you kind of have like all these mini projects on the go that are all supposed to be moving your business forward. And I was exhausted and I was really worn out and I was tired. But my business was growing, so I kind of had the idea I was doing something right, but it was just not as fast as it could have been. And, I really felt terrible at the end of the day. And I remember getting home from like seeing 7 or 8 personal training clients in a row. And I used to get home and I still had so much to do because I was, managing an Instagram account and growing a YouTube channel, and I had to make client programs. And you've probably been in that spot where you just feel completely overwhelmed and you just feel stuck. And I had no idea where my clients were coming from because I was doing so many things, and I didn't know where I was putting my energy that was creating the results. But I knew something was working because the business was slowly doubling, from 20K year one to 40 to 75, and it kept growing. But I had my aha moment, and I was struggling to see exactly what I needed to work on in my business because everything was on my plate all of the time. I was so overwhelmed because it was taking me so long to execute on everything. Like, I was moving forward baby steps in like 30 different areas. And that's when I realized, as entrepreneurs, quite often we make big decisions like, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. I'm going to start a company. I am going to redesign our website. And we give ourselves way too long to implement it. And what I mean by implement it is put the action steps into place and see the result. Get through to the finish line. We give ourselves way too long. And once I figured out exactly how to accelerate my decision-making and my processes and my focus, I hit 6 figures within the year. And that was my first 6-figure year. And it has been growing steadily ever since. So it was kind of like a lightning bolt to my confidence and a success as an entrepreneur. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. So I'm going to talk to you about how to create positive change in your business and fast decisions. So what you're going to learn today: I'm going to teach you how you can get done everything in 6 months that you'd like to do in just 1 month. And I can tell you firsthand, I'm going to give you an example. This happens when you know how to do it. I'm going to teach you how to clearly see why you feel overwhelmed and why you feel like you've been struggling through, this kind of launch phase and getting true momentum. I'm going to teach you how to coach yourself through the overthinking and the stress that comes with just being an entrepreneur, because we overthink a lot of things. We have a lot of thoughts and a lot of ideas. I'm going to help with that. And I'm also going to teach you how to make actionable decisions that are going to transform your ability to be highly productive and grow your business faster without all of the BS. And I'm going to go through what some of the BS is that you've likely encountered before. So I'm going to ask you a question. How do you create a breakthrough, like a true breakthrough? What is it? What does that mean to you? Because that is what we need to be constantly stepping into in order to grow our business. So a breakthrough simply is that every time you see your growth and what you need to do to move forward, you choose to do it and act on it immediately. And I know in concept that sounds simple, but I know also in practice, when I look not only into the lives of my clients, but myself personally, I know that this isn't always the case. We see what we need to work on, but we kind of put it off or procrastinate it or kind of half do it. But living in consistent breakthrough in your business means you see what you need to work on, you choose to do it, and you act on it immediately. Because here's the thing, you cannot build a continuous money-making business off of breakthroughs that you have made years ago. You need to constantly be stepping forward, be innovating, be creating new ways to serve your customers and your clients, or create new products or elevate the products you already have. So we need to get you constantly living in business breakthrough. So the question is, if we need to create breakthrough, we know that we need to, one, see your growth. So the question is, and I want to hear your answers on this and what you think. Why do people struggle to see what they need to work on? So like when you're sitting there and you know that, say you're looking at Q1 or we're now approaching into Q4 at the end of the year, and you know kind of what you need to work on at the end of the year, why do you think it is that you struggle to see what exactly it is you need to work on? So I'd like you to leave, if you have any ideas, I'd love you to drop them in the comments. And sometimes I find that the answers that come in the comments are really useful, because there's sometimes things that we might not even know we're struggling with. So I'm going to give you a moment to see if you can come up with at least an idea, drop it in the comments. So for those guys, yeah, some tasks are very overwhelming. Absolutely. And that can mean a couple things. That can mean the size of the task. That can mean the number of action steps. That can mean maybe being outside of your comfort zone. So for those of you guys that are just jumping in, why we're asking the question, why do people struggle to see what they need to work on? Not prioritizing key metrics. Yeah, for sure. Right? Like, I love to call those money-making tasks. Like, we know that there are definitely tasks we need to do that drive the business forward. And there are just kind of the back-end admin tasks that kind of feel safe and comfortable, right? So not prioritizing those 100%. So if you can think of any other ones, feel free to drop them in. But I'm going to go over some of the ones that I see most frequently in the clients that I work with. So yeah, completing tasks, that's a good one. Or competing tasks. Yes, definitely. There's a whole bunch of things that feel important, right? So some of the answers that I love are lack of clarity on exactly what you need to work on. So it kind of feels unclear. Let's see. Luke says, I feel most people know what they should be doing. They might keep themselves so busy they don't face the intimidating, scary stuff. Yes. Too many things to do. Yes, 100%. I'm going to read you through my top list here of what I see, and you're probably going to identify with some of those too. So lack of clarity on exactly what they need to work on. I find that some clients feel unclear of what to ask. Like they don't even know the next step or what they should be asking, what they need to work on. They feel stuck. I often find sometimes that I deal with clients that don't like the idea of having to feel uncomfortable and put themselves out there. Like, really good example is going live on video. That is just a petrifying idea to some people. And the idea is almost so uncomfortable that they're not willing to manage their own discomfort to get through that. I find some clients know what they need to do, and that they don't want to explore why they aren't doing it. They're just like, I just know what I need to do and it'll happen one day. Unwillingness to fail and be vulnerable and put themselves out there. This really interesting one is the capacity to have. So when they actually get a result, what that feels like just to be successful, some people aren't accustomed to really feeling that kind of success. Finding a solution and actually having to put work into it and risk failing. People don't think far enough ahead. So they know what they need to do right now, but thinking, a year or two down the road, what's going to lead to results. That's one, and not taking enough action, definitely. And the last one is sometimes the before and after vision of your business. So before being where you are now and after being, a year, 2 years from now, that gap in change is so close that you can't see what it is you need to work on. So sometimes I find making a bigger jump to an after. So let's see, cold calling is terrifying. You're really going to resonate with the example that I have covering today. It's all about that kind of cold calling fear. So that's often what I see with clients is why they don't see their growth. Is it a lot of time has to do with overwhelm, confusion, feeling stuck, and not being willing to fail and feel that discomfort that happens if they do fail. So number one, seeing your growth. You got to be able to see it to live in breakthrough. So seeing it. The second one is choosing to act on it immediately. So not talking about planning it for a week down the road, 6 months down the road. And this is all about speeding up our results, because our goal is if we can scale our businesses faster, we have more resources to put back into our businesses so that we can grow and serve our clients on a higher level, right? So that's why a lot of the times it takes so long to grow a business. We make a decision and then we take way too much time. We give ourselves way too much time to implement it. So here's the question I love to pose. What if you did everything you wanted to do in 6 months and just did it in 1 month and you got what you really came for out of that action and you got the answers? That is what I love to think about. So I'm going to give you a really fun example here. And this is going to be person one, person two example. So we're going to start right here. Person number one here, if you can look at the slide here, is someone who makes a decision on something. And they're like, this is what I'm going to do to begin moving my business forward. And then all of this time passes, weeks go by, or maybe even months before anything is implemented. Maybe a plan is kind of half thrown together. We don't decide fully, and we go on and on and on, and all this time passes, and eventually 3 or 4 months down the road, that kind of project is, started. Whether that be, a really good example is I've had clients who want to start a YouTube channel, and they plan it, and they kind of like the video idea, but they really don't get their first video up and running for 3 or 4 months. That's a really good example of someone who makes a decision to move their business forward, has all of this time between the decision and the implementation. So I'm going to give you an example here. Think about this. So January comes and you're sitting down and you're brainstorming ways you are going to grow your brand or your business throughout the year. All right. And you write down all of these ideas. And the idea might be, okay, well, to raise awareness, I'm going to start giving presentations or talks or reach out or guest on podcast interviews. I'm going to start connecting with other businesses who have my audience to move my business forward, right? So that's the decision. That's what I'm going to start doing. And so this person writes on their Trello board or wherever your project planning system is, and they write it down and they like the idea. It's there. I'm going to start working on it. So, as the time goes by, when an opportunity comes up, they might reach out and say, oh, hey, that looks like an opportunity. I'm going to send a pitch that way. Or that kind of looks like an opportunity. I'm going to cold call them. And it kind of just is like it's on the back of your mind. And when you see an opportunity comes up, you're going to take action on it. But in the meantime, it's kind of just like floating along. You haven't actually implemented a decision to fully commit to that. So then the interesting thing happens is, so say that was your goal in January, then COVID hits. And all of a sudden, in-person presentations and going into companies to present is no longer an option. So that idea kind of gets put on the back burner. So this person in this example here, from January to July, had booked 1 workshop in 7 months from taking so long from decision to implementation. It was just that uncomfortable, cold pitching, and it was something that wasn't quite creating the results. So I also want you to think this. If this specific example does not apply to you, I just want you to think of the last diet you tried or the last time you planned an exercise program and you decided that that's it, you're going all in, and it took you forever to actually implement it. And every time you fell off the diet, you had to redecide to start again, and it took this long amount of time. So if the example isn't exactly resonate, think of something that does, about how long it took you between the time you decided to the time you implemented. So the example that I just gave you about the person that created the goal to reach out and pitch, it took 7 months and only pitched one because it took her so long to implement. Here's the problem with this. That is all she works on for 7 months. She approaches every single problem in her business as who she is for that entire 7 months. So because she was uncomfortable going out and pitching, because she was uncomfortable hearing no, because she was uncomfortable having someone ignore her or reject her or not want to speak to her or give her an answer she wasn't looking for, she didn't put herself out there. So that is the person, that is the entrepreneur who was showing up for 7 consecutive months. She was stuck in that mindset for 7 consecutive months. There was no growth at all because there was never a full implementation of the decision. Now, I'm going to give you a contrast to person number 2. Person number 2 is someone who makes a decision and then very short amount of time goes by, implements. And then they make another decision and then they implement it. And then another decision and they implement it. And you can see from the slide here that that is how many more decisions are being made. So the good example here as a contrast would be if this person we were talking about in example 1, if they brainstormed on how to grow their business and they came up with that they wanted to, reach out and get in front of audiences 10 times, whether that be presentations, podcasts, or whatever. So if person 2 was taking that same example, what they would do is they would start reaching out rapidly. In this specific example, what they actually did was they decided to reach out to 100 podcasts and pitch. She pitched herself 100 times in 30 days. So the fantastic thing is in August, she started doing that after having gone 7 months with only booking one. In August, she just decided that I'm going to decide to do this and I'm going to act immediately. She pitched 100 podcasts. And by the end of August, she had booked and completed 6 interviews, had 9 scheduled for the rest of the year, and had one on the deck to do that day. So there was a total of 16 interviews that were totally scheduled already because she decided, went all in, and acted. Now she's fully available for the next decision to move her business forward. So instead of having Facebook Lives, Instagram Live, I'm going to, create a new ebook over here. I'm going to reach out. Instead of having all these things, she decided that I'm going to decide, I'm going to act, and the results spoke for themselves. So here's the kind of fun thing. That example I just gave is me. And you know what the fun thing is just because you're always aware of what's going on and doing the coaching and I'm very aware, it doesn't mean that we're not real humans too. And this was somewhere I caught myself. And it had been 7 months and I had done 1 interview. And in the span of 30 days, sent out 100 pitches. And the great thing is I sent out my 100th pitch yesterday. So in the span of the actual 3 weeks of sending, I had booked 16 interviews. And that is the difference between having a decision, making it, and implementing it quickly instead of having so much on your plate. So what I did that made this so interesting was because I implemented the pitches so quickly, I got feedback right away. So I pitched in batches of 32 a week for 3 weeks. So I pitched the first 32, noticed the feedback. How many did I book? How many notes did I get? How many response? And because I made that decision and implemented, I got feedback really quick. So I was able to be like, oh, I'm not getting much feedback. So I modified my pitch. I made it a little shorter. And then I sent it out for another 32. And because I'm constantly making decisions and implementing it so quickly, what happens is you get feedback and you can make better decisions and you can reevaluate and you can continuously be moving forward. And that is how you grow your business, is by consistently implementing quickly. So what we're then going to look at is when you look at person number 1, who I was showing up as from January to July, or who I was showing up as in the last month, who is going to get more out of their business efforts? When you live in that kind of flow of decision and implementation quickly, you grow at a rate that other people can't even come close to keeping up with. And that is how you really start to pull ahead. You create everything so much faster, and then life becomes bigger than you ever thought it could be. And you're constantly in breakthrough after breakthrough. Because now, I mean, I've only sent those pitches out in the last 3 weeks. I can bet there will be more offers rolling in, but I have 16 interviews lined up, which means I am in front of 16 different audiences by the end of this year, guaranteed. And that is how you start to snowball the effects of your business. So what it really comes down to is that you need to be making more decisions in your business, because decisions are made from a place of looking into the future. Here's how I want my business to look in 1 year from now, 2 years from now. And I'm going to make decisions based on that. But rash decisions are made from thinking in the now and that kind of stressed out energy of hitting it now. But this is what I want you to take home. When you feel that your business is ebbing and flowing, when you kind of, you're on a roll, and either you sign a bunch of clients or you make a bunch of sales and you're on a roll, and then all of a sudden it feels like there's this lull period and you're not getting the results you want. And then all of a sudden it picks up again and you're going really fast and everything's great. And then all of a sudden sales drop off. And we get those ebbs and flows in businesses. Hear this. The reason that your business is ebbing and flowing is because you are consistently going from person 1 to person 2. Person 1, making a decision, taking your time. You're constantly living in that energy of growth and then making a decision. And then all of a sudden you'll start making decisions quick, implementing quick, and your business will take off and you'll get caught up in that momentum. So if you find that your business is feeling overwhelmed because you're having up and down periods and you're stuck, it's because your business is going from person 1 to person 2. So making that transition of becoming person 2 and staying in that energy is what is going to create that breakthrough in your business. So here's what person number 1 did. And I can attest to this, and I bet we all can. Here's what person number 1 does. They make the decision to act on something. And here's what they do with all of that time between when they make the decision and when they implement. They do things like this. They question themselves. I don't know. Should we be on Facebook? Should we be on LinkedIn? Should we start a YouTube channel? Should we hop over to TikTok because it's the new thing? Or they buffer, which means they distract themselves. They spin out and get all confused. They have drama. Drama in our brains is things like, well, we're never going to be able to do this. This is so much. I'm overwhelmed. All of that conversation we have in our head that really keeps us from moving forward. They talk themselves out of it. Oh, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. I did just decide to, have a YouTube channel, or I did just decide to launch that product, but now I don't know. Maybe we got the targeting wrong. Maybe we need to go over here and look at ads. Like, this is what we do. We negotiate with ourselves. And here's why no progress gets made. We are constantly having to remake the same decision over and over again. You remake that decision that we're going to go all in with Instagram. We're going to go all in with Facebook ads. We're going to go all in with this. We constantly make that decision and we question and back ourselves out. That consistent having to make that decision, this is what wears you out. And this is what creates all the exhaustion, all of that time that needed to implement. By the time you actually implement it, you're like, oh, I need a break. I need a break. That was exhausting. We just got off this massive project launch or product launch or whatever you want to say. All of that energy got sucked up into drama and questioning. And is this the right thing? And I don't know. What about the fonts? All of that energy gets sucked up into there, and you end up completely burning yourselves out and feeling overwhelmed. And then you need to take a break. And that's when you move from person 2 energy into person 1 energy, where the difference is person 2 here, they make decisions and they implement right away. And there's not time to do all of those things, the questioning, negotiating, buffering, spinning out all the drama, the excuses, the blame, the justification. You don't get time to do all of that because you're constantly deciding and implementing. That time to do all of that is eliminated. And that is what's exhausting you in the first place. And being able to make decisions quickly eliminates that exhaustion you get from that. And here's the thing is it looks really hustly, but it's not really as hustly as it looks. What it comes down to is decision drama. And I see this over and over and over again in clients, no matter what we're talking about, whether that be our relationships, whether that be with the house we buy, the business we start, it's all decision drama, and that we believe that there is a wrong decision to be made. So if we can adopt the belief that there is no wrong decision, we can move forward a lot faster, because thinking about, is this the right decision? Is the wrong decision? Should we do this or should we do this? That is going to paralyze you. So wrong decisions, like actually making a wrong decision, only means that you didn't get the result you wanted. It doesn't mean there was anything fundamentally wrong about the decision, because we obviously get to choose to see it as a learning opportunity or something that completely derails the project. We get to make that decision, and we get to decide what the results actually mean. So if we can learn to be uncomfortable and know that there are going to be so many failures along the way as entrepreneurs, because heads up, there's going to be a ton of them. If we can get really comfortable at experiencing that failure and making it mean something that helps us learn, then we don't get so overwhelmed, because there really is no such thing as a right or a wrong decision. It's just drama. Make a decision, and then you get to decide whether you liked your reasons for that decision or not. So the entrepreneur that moves forward the fastest is not afraid to make decisions, because they make so many. When you're constantly deciding, implementing, you're making them so often, right? When you make decisions slowly, they feel very, very important because you make so few of them. When you only decide to take big action once or twice a year, yeah, it's a little scary, the idea of failing, because it took you half a year to make that decision. But if you're constantly decide, implement, you make so many decisions that they don't carry as much weight. So that fear of failure shrinks. I mean, a lot of consideration and a lot of thinking goes into making these decisions, because if you're scared, you're not going to make another one for a while because your decisions are so slow in the first place, and it gets very overwhelming. But when you make them all the time, it's just trial and error. You make a decision, it either works or it doesn't. You get to decide what it means. You're not stuck in being stuck paralyzed by making that decision. You develop that resiliency you need to keep making decisions. So the key takeaway: the less often you make decisions, big ones, the more weight they have. The slower you make decisions, the more weight they have. So heck yeah, when you make 3 decisions, it's important. It makes a big deal if you fail once. That's a third. But if you're making 3 or 4 massive decisions and acting on them a month, 1 or 2 or 3 failures in there is not going to be that big of a deal in the scheme of things. And this is super important to understand, because it is what is going to make or break you as an entrepreneur, is your ability to handle that failure. And here's the cold truth: if your business isn't growing, it's because you're not making enough fast decisions. We always want to be making them from that place of future thinking, 1 year out, 2 year out, 3 year out, and sufficiency. So if your business is not growing at the rate that you'd like, I'd like you to take inventory of how many big decisions you have made since January of this year. And then not only how many decisions you have made, but how many of them you have taken action on and completed. Because here's the thing: if you kind of started a YouTube channel and then fell off, and then you had to make the decision to start again and you fell off, and you're always back and forth, or whatever your project might be, that doesn't count. How many decisions did you actually go through on in the year? So what this is going to come down to is learning how to coach yourself through the overwhelm, because it's totally normal that overwhelm comes up. It's as part of being an entrepreneur, our brains are always on fire. We're thinking a mile a minute. There's so much going on, and we're constantly getting inspired and new ideas, and maybe I'll do this, or I'll add this on, or maybe I'll bring a team member on for this. And we're constantly in that energy of creation. So it's easy to get overwhelmed. So there's actually a bit of a strategy to it that at least I go through, and I go through with my clients, that I'm going to share with you. So coaching yourself through overwhelm. You're going to sit down with a pen and a piece of paper, and I want you to start by brainstorming all of the projects you have to do. And I call this the master list. Like, this is that dream list of everything you'd like to do within your business, whether, that be develop the software that can do this to help out my business, this client management system, maybe there's some social platform you really want to master, some partnership you want to make. All of the things go onto this list. Then you decide which one you're going to want to work on first. You're going to pick one and you're going to focus on it until you finish. So going back to my examples, like I'm going to raise some brand awareness. I need to make these partnerships. So I decided to do that. And my decision was, I'm going to pitch 100 different people. And I went out there and I pitched my butt off. And I was constantly getting feedback and pitching again. And I'd write out all of the subtasks and tasks that went into that. So what that looked like for me was, well, number one, I have to find the 100 podcasts. Number two, I have to go on all their social medias and see if they're a good, vibe fit with my brand. I want to listen to their podcasts and make sure that they, share similar messaging and similar energy. And I want to get to know kind of their brand. Then I had to write up the pitch. Then I had to send out the first batch and get feedback. And this is that process of writing out all of those little subtasks that need to go into what you want to do. Then when you have all of those subtasks, you need to add due dates to them all. Be super specific. Like a month from now is not a due date. Put a due date on it. Calendar it. The only reason we don't put due dates and calendars on things is because we're worried we might have to push it or change the deadline in the future. But really, that's just another decision. It's not that big of a deal. So we need to get good at putting things visually on our calendars so that we can see deadlines are approaching. This is when I said I was going to act. Now I just have to implement, right? So then once it's all, organized and dated and calendared, and it's on your calendar and you can see pretty much you have written out the yellow brick road all the way to your goal. All you need to do is get up and implement and act. And part of this is knowing that there's going to be discomfort along the way. You're going to be uncomfortable. And it's not going to feel good to do the cold pitch. It's not going to feel good to make a phone call to someone you've never known. I mean, this is just part of growing a business, is learning how to be uncomfortable with that. And then once you implement, it's acting fast. It's taking rapid action without letting yourself negotiate, over-explain, blame, spin out drama, all of that stuff that we talked about, that person number one wastes time doing, that prevents them from actually doing anything, that creates all of that overwhelm. So then what you're going to do is you're going to evaluate. Did it work? And there's a nice little strategy that I always like to use, and it's one that my coach taught me. It's 3 things you look at whenever you implement something. What worked really well, what didn't work, and what would I do differently? And I was constantly doing that with those 100 pitches. What worked? Okay, they responded to these things. They responded when I sent it from this business email versus a personal email. What didn't work? Maybe it was too long. Maybe the language was too formal. And what I would do differently next time. And I was constantly reevaluating. And as soon as I knew what I was going to do next, I decided again and I acted. So the difference is between somebody that is constantly moving their business forward is we see these 2 areas here that have the stars. Entrepreneurs that constantly are moving their business forward don't spend less time here. That time gap between decision and implementing and making the next decision. So that is the big thing that I wanted to share with you guys today, is that we need to be making fast decisions. And if we want to stop staying in overwhelm, we need to be making those quick decisions so that when one decision doesn't work out, it's not like your whole business was based on that one decision, because you're constantly taking action, implementing, getting feedback, trying new things, figuring out what doesn't work. This also works really well in the health space. Like, think about it. When is the last time you've decided to eat healthy? Maybe you took an approach that was like, I decided to try eating all whole foods, or I decided to try low carb, or maybe I tried vegetarian. You try it and you see what works. What did I like? What didn't I like? How was my energy? And you're constantly tweaking to make it work for you. It goes the same way in business. It's about constantly living in that place of reevaluating and then making a quick decision on if you're going to change it or how you're going to move forward. So I'm going to share a couple tools with you that, or it's one of my favorite tools, and that tool is Trello. So Trello is typically set up as a project planning software. And if you haven't heard of it before, it's available like as an app and as a desktop thing. It's a free project planning software, and there are paid levels to get access to some of the fancier features. But why I like Trello is it really helps me streamline this exact process. So for example, I like to keep cards, all my lists organized. So what I'm doing this week, my daily to-dos, what I am working on currently as I'm sitting at my desk that's in progress, the things that I've gotten done that week, what projects are up next, what projects are ongoing, what projects are in the future, and everything can be organized on this Trello board. So it's kind of neat. They come as blank boards, but you can really set them up however you want. And the power of Trello is you get to create a project and you can have all of your subtasks underneath that one project. So it's kind of like if you made a decision to work on the project on maybe the goals for this week, we took a project, we looked inside at all the to-dos and we just act. And by having a planning system like this in place, it allows you to not waste time in the planning and the production and everything like that. And you just get to move forward on it. So this is tool number one in terms of focus and productivity. And that is something that I think is a great resource. But for the most part, this is what I wanted to share with you guys today in terms of using your brain to make great decisions in order to move your business forward faster, living in breakthrough, seeing where you need to grow, choosing it, and acting on it immediately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the floor to questions right now. I am going to leave my email address here if you don't have any questions. But what you can do is I work, like I said, one-on-one with entrepreneurs to really help them optimize their brain and body so they can get, way more productivity and growth out of their business, not only in their ability to make decisions, but how to show up at your desk fully optimized, meaning you don't waste time, staring at your screen, not knowing what to do, feeling stuck, learning how to show up clear and sharp and productive. So I do one-on-one consultations if you're interested in working with someone like me so that you can spend your brain power worrying about growing your business and I take over managing your health. That is there for you. So you can send me an email. There's also a website that's linked in my booth here at Vancouver Startup Week. So you are welcome to check that out. And you can learn a little bit more about me. You can email me here and I'd love to talk to you. So I will open up the floor to questions if anybody has anything that they were wanting to ask, and I'll pop over and have a look in the questions. So with your clients, how do you balance optimization with self-acceptance? So maybe, Luke, are you able to give me an example of something that you're struggling with self-acceptance with particularly? Awesome. So Luke says, generally people who feel they need to improve something in order to be enough, doing things from a place of being incomplete. So the way this a lot comes down to our beliefs, our fundamental beliefs, and understanding that ultimately you get to make the decision on if you are enough or not. So what we start to look at is understanding why you are deciding you're not enough in a certain area, if that makes sense. Like, what is the reason? Like, what are the areas that you're questioning? What do you feel like you're struggling with the most? If that kind of makes sense. So I always like to think that I get to make decisions on everything I think in my life, from body image to my business success to what I make a failure mean. And if I find that I'm feeling overwhelmed or like struggling with a certain concept, I love to ask myself, like, why am I thinking that? Where is this coming from? What belief do I have about myself that's creating this, if that makes sense? So I'm just going to reread your question, make sure I answered it. So when you're talking, I think also about balancing optimization with self-acceptance, I think that just because you want to optimize and get better doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with who we are now. I think that you can love who you are and still want to grow and evolve. I know for a lot of us, especially as entrepreneurs, growth is kind of ingrained in who we are. And really understanding the concept, and I go over this a lot with my clients, that their meaning your future, your goal, what you set as maybe your income goal or the size of business you want or how many people you want to help, when your life is there, it's not going to be better than here, meaning it's going to feel the exact same. So I teach a lot that our life experiences are 50% positive emotions, 50% negative. I don't think anybody gets out of that. So when you get to your goal life and you're optimizing and all of these things happen, you're still going to experience 50% negative emotions. It's just different problems. It's just different flavors. So when we kind of idolize that, when I'm optimized, I won't have these problems or I won't experience this, then we start to think that there is better than here. And we completely miss out on the joy of the journey along the way. And that's when we start thinking that now is not good enough and there will be. But how many times have we gotten somewhere like that and we found that it wasn't all it was cracked up to be and we just set our goal on something else, right? So I hope that answered your question. If it didn't, feel free to re-ask. So do you treat decisions that have monetary costs differently? The money you put into a bad decision, like a bad hire, could be quite costly and sink you. You know what? It definitely could, but it's interesting. That would have to there would have to be a belief there that debt or losing money was bad. And you're right. You have every right to think that that is true, but does that serve you to think that that's bad? So a really good example is taking out debt or taking out money to start a business. So we're often raised with the belief that, debt is bad, right? But realistically, debt is just a new circumstance. And it's the way we think about the debt that gives it that bad image. And that's the same thing is there's a series of thoughts that you're likely having about what it means to lose money that are creating that experience, right? And at the end of the day, if that was the situation and you did hire someone and you did lose a bunch of money, and you're in that situation, that would be obviously as a result of your decision, but you can either stay in that spot and choose to think, oh my gosh, I've sunk my business, what am I gonna do? Or you can take it as a learning experience, right? Because that's really what this all is oftentimes the decisions feel wrong because they don't line up with the result we wanted. So that's our opportunity to really learn from that, right? Because at the end of the day, you can't reverse your decisions. So it's our job to like our decisions and our reason for them. If that kind of makes sense. So how to deal with so many distractions. Okay, I love this question. This is one of my favorite ones to talk about. Distractions are basically our way of not being able to process an urge. So the way I like to think of urges is your brain tells you you need to do something. I want to do something, like an email pops in. Say an email popped in the middle of this conversation right now. My brain naturally is going to go, oh, that's shiny and new. I got to go look at that now, right? But if we are constantly giving into those urges, it feeds it. So one of the examples I always like to think of, and I share with my clients, and it's part of learning how to deal properly with distractions and urges and overcoming urges, is this example. So back when the phones used to be attached to the wall, we used to sit around the dinner table, my family and I, and we had a rule, and it was nobody answers the phone during dinner, period. It doesn't matter if we're home, we're having a family dinner. And more often than not, somebody would call during dinner. And the phone is always in the kitchen, so it would sit and it would ring and it would ring and it would ring and it would ring. And we'd all kind of sit there like, can it stop ringing? And it was a little uncomfortable, right? And that we were waiting for it to pass, and all of a sudden the phone would stop ringing. Oh, and the answering machine would pick up, and we'd all have to kind of awkwardly sit there as someone was like, hey, I guess you're not home right now. I'll try calling you back later. And there was that discomfort in there. And what I learned in that is that just because the phone rings doesn't mean you need to pick up the phone and answer it, if that makes sense. So it's the same way as a distraction coming in. It's present, it's really uncomfortable, and your brain really wants to go answer it because we're always told something rings, you should answer it. So when we start to deal with things like distractions, we need to welcome in the idea that we're going to be really freaking uncomfortable as we're going through this transition phase, as you're teaching your brain that you make the decisions. Your higher brain makes the decisions, not your emotional self. So I always love like that example of it's okay to just let the phone ring. So when you're getting so many distractions coming in, that's normal. A, we can work on eliminating those distractions, or B, we can just let the phone ring. The email pops up, somebody messages us over here, somebody walks behind us in the office. It's learning how to let the phone ring, because you don't always need to respond to that distraction. And what it does is the more often you don't respond to those pings and those instant notifications that come in, the more often you respond to that, or the less often you respond to that, the less power it has, if that makes sense. So it stops having such a pull over you, and you are able to use your delayed gratification, your higher thinking centers to make decisions. But it is willing to go through that discomfort too, right? And also working on eliminating them too. I mean, if your phone is going off all the time, put it face down. So there's things like that you can work on too. Some decisions are really major, like burn reputations to the client. You know what? I agree. But at the same time, if those are decisions you're making, the best thing you can do is learn from them, right? Like, it was a decision that you were making with the best information you had at the time. And if it was a decision that wasn't what you felt was in the best interest at that time, you wouldn't have made your decision, right? So ultimately, your decision is made. This is the new circumstance, and you get to decide what you want to think about it going forward. You can either think about it as, this ruined me, or I've damaged this client, and this means this about me and my business. Or you can say, well, hey, that was a goof up. That was a complete goof up. What am I going to learn from that so I don't repeat that kind of decision again? What information can I take when making decisions like that again in the future? Say you have an important pitch to make and you're procrastinating because you want to get it right. What is your thought process to quickly implement? So it's interesting. This sounds like it's coming from the belief that there will only be one opportunity to send a pitch like this ever again. And we like to think that in terms of scarcity. So there's always, I love the belief that there are so many opportunities for us to grow and to share our knowledge and to, move forward with our businesses. And that would be like this, like with the podcast pitch example I gave. If there was a podcast that I really wanted to make it on, and I spent so much time editing the pitch and making it just right, I would never send it, because I'd always be worried that there could be something better. But the only way you're going to learn if the pitch worked or not is just to send it, get feedback on it, and then know that there are going to be opportunities in the future for you to take what you learned from that pitch and apply in the future. So I always like to think, instead of scarcity thinking that there are going to be no other options, there are going to be. We just might have to go out there and look for them. And if you never send your work out into the world, you're never going to be able to get the feedback you need in order to make it better for the next time you send it out. So I think that's all the questions that we have here. If there's no other questions, I have something fun that I can share with you. Hi, Caddy. Oh, Caddy went away. Caddy's back.
Yeah, please do share your fun stuff.
Yeah, okay. Where the heck did my thing go? Okay, so one thing that I do offer a lot of entrepreneurs, especially since I love to be working with entrepreneurs that are in the place of becoming limitless, is I do have a web class that I offer for entrepreneurs that are in that place of wanting to optimize. And the web class is called Becoming Limitless. It's all about how to optimize your brain and your body with biohacking. So if you haven't heard of biohacking before, that's kind of one of my specialties. It's on how to hack your biology so that you can show up to your desk clearer and more focused, and you can get more done during the day. And that's so you can eliminate brain fog. Brain fog is, when you show up at your desk and you're so tired and you're confused and you just feel like you want to have a nap or you get distracted, and work at full capacity in your business. So this is a web class that I offer, and it goes over strategy specifically on how you can hack your sleep and hack your nutrition so that you can extend the amount of focused work blocks you do during the day. So yes, it does focus on optimizing your health, but the direct result is working on optimizing your business as a result of that. So if that is something that you're interested in, my website here is just TanessaShears.com. There's a button and you can click show me how, and it'll take you to the link to sign up for that. It's a free masterclass. It really just gets you started on the idea of optimizing your health so that you can show up better in your business.